Hello, good morning. And while I will, of course, take any live questions that come along as priority, I want to use this live stream this morning to focus on these long multiplication worksheets that have gone live this week. I'm really delighted with them. They have, as ever, been produced by the amazing Jeff Kutcher, who, while locked down in Spain, is just using his incredible talent for programming interactive worksheets to create all these worksheets that exactly replicate the visual structures that I'm trying to focus on. So I published the video on long multiplication probably a couple of months ago now, and I showed examples of these worksheets. They're really easy for anyone to create, but he's now created them so they'll auto-generate if you go to his site. I've got 5 of each that are really easy to download from my sites, and you can find them if you go to authenticmaths.co.uk/worksheets. It explains where to find the worksheets. One of those places is in my Facebook group, which is Expert Primary Maths Teaching. If you just go to the Files section, you can find all these worksheets. So the introduction to long multiplication worksheets look like this. They show long multiplications where the smaller number is between 13 and 19. They show them as arrays. So children can puzzle out the answers to these simply by counting all the squares. And we can revise what multiplication is. It is 24 lots of 14 if you count it that way, or 14 lots of 24 if you count it that way. So multiplication is lots of. So any child who can count can start labelling the squares one at a time with numbers and try and count up the whole lot. Like all the strategies I recommend, it's low floor, high ceiling. All your children can access this if they can count and write numbers. And then So there are 5 sheets like that on my site, and of course you can auto-generate a lot more from Jeff's when he gets them online, which I hope he will in the next week or two. So there's another example, 27 times 19. And as children start to do this, you can encourage them to look for shortcuts. And they might do something like starting to cut off 10 by 10 squares. Rather than count every square individually, they might go 3, 6, 10 that way, and 10 down. That's 4, 8, 10, 3, 6, 10. Just check that. And they can see that's effectively an 100 flat. It's one of those. So they can label 100 there. And then they can look for other sections that they can chop off without counting them one at a time to count up the total and find the answer. So we encourage them to be creative in that way. And children really will come up with all sorts of strategies, and this is laying amazing foundations for long multiplication. I'll come back to one of those in just a minute for mental long multiplication. But what we're edging towards, if I just take this harder one, 27 times 19. We're edging towards the standard method. And in the standard method, we would complete 10 times 19. 10 times 27. So that is 10 times 27 is 270. And then what we've got left is 9 lots of 27. And we can work that out by setting it up as a standard column multiplication, like that. 9 sevens are 63, so that's 3 down, 6 to carry. 2 9s are 18, add the 6 is 240. It's 24, sorry, so 243. We can just check that is 27 less than that. So that looks right, and then if we add those together, 243 plus 270, that is 713, and we have our answer. So children can work these out in very instinctive ways, and we can edge them towards this strategy, and then we can set that up in a formal way. I'll just swap to another example. It's good to keep seeing more. Let's look at one of these. Let's look at this one. (18 times 19). Let's just check which way we're going. 3, 6, 10. I think the 19 is up the way it is. That's 19. That's 18. And so I can set that up like that. We're trying to do... It's difficult when the numbers are really close together, so this maybe isn't the best example. But I'm trying to do the 18 lots of 19. And I'm trying to do that by doing 10 times 19. And to do that, I'm actually cutting it this way. 3, 6, 10. Not just following established methods here. We're really, hello, I can see some people are watching if you're there. It'd be great if you say hi. But I may miss comments because I'm looking down a lot. So if I've missed a comment or a hi from you, I haven't seen it. And if you don't get a quite quick response from me, then please come back to me because I've missed it. So here we have 10 times 19. And we also have the 8 times 19. Sorry, these should really have gone the other way up. So I'm just going to change that into 8 times 19 because this is just more standard. 10 times 19. So the 10 times 19 is 190. And the 8 times 19, 8 nines, 72. 1 8, add the 7 that's come to carry, and we've got 152. And they add together to give this result, 342. Hopefully that's right. It's always difficult live. And we're edging towards the formal algorithm for long multiplication. And of course we can put this here, 8 times 19. That's how we've split it. But as I said, working in this way can lead to some wonderful insights into mental methods for long multiplication. And this worksheet that's part of the pack prompts for that. Because some children will simply look at that and go, oh, it's 350. And because you've actually got the array there, they can clearly explain to you how they've done that. And they will have done that by thinking in hundreds because 4 25s are 100. So what they're doing is they're seeing 4 25s as being 100 and 14 is 3.5 lots of 4. So they're seeing it like that. So sometimes there are shorter ways of doing long multiplication than the algorithm, depending on what the long multiplication is. Now, that's the first phase of introducing long multiplication, where one of the numbers is controlled to be less than 20. The second phase, and this comes in the second pack of worksheets, is where both the numbers are over 20. Sorry, I'm used to having the camera around the other way. I need to look. Hang on, where's the camera? Camera. I've lost track of where the camera is. I might just sort of look to the middle. Looks a bit shifty. Apologies for that. I should be able to work this out. The camera is over here, but when I look over here, it seems to come out wrong. I think maybe my image is reversed. I'm just confused. The live streaming button was in a different place today as well, which really didn't help. So here we go, 31 times 22. Now, if we give these again to children and allow them to experiment, these squares now aren't big enough for you to write a number in every single square. We're asking them to find shortcuts. And one of the ways of them finding a shortcut would be to count 10 rows at a time. So that's 10 times 31 there. Another 10 rows, 3, 6, 10. That's 10 times 31, like that. And that's 2 times 31. and they can work all of those out and add them together. So that's 310, 310 and 62. And if they add those all up, they will get the answer they're looking for. But if we relate that back to the formal method, and there's space to do that here, the formal method would require us to find 20 times 31 and 2 times 31 and add them together. Now, because I'm writing in marker, I haven't really got time to expand that out, but what I'm doing there is I'm going to find 20 times 31 by doing 31 times 10 times 2. Or, because you can change the order of multiplication and you can expand out a single part of the multiplication. That is clearly 2 times 10 times 31, because multiplication is commutative. So we can do that calculation. We can do the multiplying by 10 simply by putting in a 0 by now, and then we can just focus on the 2 times 31, which gives us 62. And here we're just doing the 2 times 31, which is 62. And then we add these together to get our answer. And we can also see that this 20 times 31 is 31 times 10 doubled. It all links back in. Every child can deeply understand what's going on there. For some children, it'll come, 620 come from, what have we done? And eventually, for any long multiplication, a child can simply draw a rectangle without the grids and cut it approximately into sections to show what's going on there. So there we finally have the worksheets to support the video, and I'll put a link to this live stream at the bottom of that video so that people can find those more easily now. I have to pay tribute. This understanding of how to teach long multiplication was created by a very brilliant maths educator called Jeff Giles. Jeff Giles was for those who've been in maths education a long time, he was the architect of dime materials like this. He did the incredible work on, these are cut into all sorts of interesting shapes. I don't know if you can see that there. On algebra through area, that was Jeff Giles, and he was a Scottish maths educator. He wrote very, very brilliant educational resources. There's also things, dime booklets, they were Jeff Giles. And I was introduced to this way of teaching long multiplication by another great maths educator called Jeff Fawkes when he was running a workshop at ATM, Association Teachers Maths Conference, after Jeff Giles died, and he picked on that as being one of his great teaching methods. And it works. You know, I've used it with classes of children who have all sorts of barriers to learning maths and have really struggled. If you get them going with this, it really works. They can see what's going on where previously they didn't see it, even if they've got big holes in their prior learning. Hello, I can see more people are watching. If you'd like to say hi, that'd be awesome. If you've put a comment before, I apologise, I have missed it. I'm going to be finishing up quite soon, so if you've got a question, please fire it in. So Jeff Fawkes is still around. He's a great mentor of mine that was at that workshop that I first met him. So tributes done there, and of course more tributes to Jeff Kutcher, who is doing these amazing worksheets. I'm just so grateful, we're so lucky. One other thing I've seen this week, Sarah Tilley has a YouTube channel, Curious Maths. If you fancy something a bit different, she's done a live stream of a workshop she did on maths through stories, and she's shared that this week, and it is brilliant. So big shout out for her and what she's doing. She's previously shared workshops on Numicon. Now they don't seem to be live on her YouTube channel just now, but she is a brilliant primary maths advisor. So big shout out to Sarah. She thoroughly deserves that shout out. What's happened this week? I've got hello, hopped on to ask a question, but I can ask it another time. I asked it on another video. If you asked it on another video and I haven't answered, then please ask it now because I've missed it. I apologise, so please ask away. I'm happy to stay as long as is needed. I just haven't got very much more to say today, so I'll carry on until you've either ask me your question and we've talked about it, or you've told me that you've decided you don't want to ask it today, which is fine. So it's a bit long, that's okay. You can ask it in bits if you like, and we can come back on it. It's great to chat. After the, I'll explain a bit about what else I've got going on while I'm waiting for your bits of questions to come through. So don't worry about me filling airtime. I'm quite good at that. What went live? The video on area went live after last week's live stream, and my video on 3D shape is due to go live after this. Young child who thinks subtraction is commutative. Okay. The 3D shape one going live is, I'm really pleased with that. Lots of magnetic polygon in that, and I'll be giving a big shout out to the polygon people. Right, let's start to talk about subtraction. If a child thinks subtraction is commutative and has that really deeply ingrained, there's two things we need to work on. He'll create extra counters if there aren't enough to subtract. Good for him. Yes, he's absolutely convinced that it is commutative. Or the ones he has, or take the ones he has and say the answer is 0. I would cherish him. He's going to be quite a character. He's absolutely sticking to his beliefs. He will not accept bits of maths that he's just told as spells because they don't make sense. Let's dig out the part-part-whole model. He can't have a part-part-whole model clearly instilled. So let's get out my Cuisenaire rods. Just a mo. I saw in one of the forums this week that someone had posted a part-part-whole model stencil, which was quite cool. I might try and find a link to that and publicise that next week. Right, question, where are my Cuisenaire rods? I'll have to get out some new ones. I normally have a pack of the 3 relevant ones. I'm hesitant to use a number line because I don't want to start on negative numbers. No, let's get this part-part-whole model sorted. Get me a big box of Cuisenaire rods. Excuse me, my mic just might come off. Nombre en couleur. I have many boxes of these. Found them cheap on eBay. So, let's try. Got a hole. So we'll go back to real basics in part-part-whole. Let's just see what that is. So addition is where you've got 2 quantities and you're trying to find the total. That one's missing. Addition is about the total being missing. Subtraction is about one of the parts being missing. You know a total and you know one part, could be either part, so you might know those 2 quantities and you're trying to find out that one. So, or you might know those 2 and you're trying to find out that one. And this part-part-whole model explains why subtraction can be counting on, because you could find this missing part by counting on the gap, or it can be taking away because you can find this missing part by starting with the total and chopping off this much, starting from here and counting back this much. So subtraction is a missing part, and you can build lots of visual models of this. In particular contexts, sheep in a field, you've got 2 groups of sheep, what's the total? And then the subtraction is you know the total and you know one of the groups, find the size of the other group of sheep. And you can do it with physical objects on a table. Sheep maybe aren't very handy. I'm from Cumbria, so they're usually quite handy. And quite easy for children to visualise. A lot of problems are done with sheep. Now, then when you've got that clearly instilled, in subtraction, the larger quantity is given, the total is given, and we are subtracting one of the parts and finding the other part. Now what he's doing is if we try and subtract the other way, that's the total, and that's one of the parts. So it's all gone a bit pear-shaped, and you might actually need to talk about the need for negative numbers. You actually need a negative number to get back to there. That's the total. We've got to end up with that as a total. If he uses this as the other part, then we haven't got that as a total. We could do this with a number line as well, but if you haven't introduced a number line yet, then I wouldn't introduce it for this purpose. It's not very comfortable. I'm just trying to think of another way of introducing. He uses rods. That's cool. Yeah, so if you play, if I were you, I would let that one settle in my own mind and come back to it tomorrow. Sleeping on visual ideas really helps. Sleep is really important for knitting up those visual structures. Come back, play with it yourself tomorrow or whenever you've had a sleep to check that you're comfortable with what I've just said. We'll publish this live stream so you can come back and watch it. And then have a go with him in that field. If you've already been... When children are very tied to a belief about maths, it often takes several different goes to get at it and get at the problem and sort it out. And you can use different methods at different times. And the early ones may fail, but they put a few chinks in the glass ceiling. They start to crack and they make him almost ready to change his mind. And when you come at this with confidence and let him do it, hopefully it will work. If not, come back to me next week and I will come up with something else for you in the context of the experiences that you've had, if you explain them. And you can always message me on videos. I do usually get the messages, but I may well have missed one, so this provides a backup. Right, I think it's time to stop. Is that okay? If you could just send me a message, say yes, okay, or I've got another question. That would be cool, because then I know, where's my cup of tea? Oh, it's not within reach. I could just sit here and drink tea. I joke with him that if he doesn't have enough money to buy something, he can't create extra money. Yeah, that's fine, thanks. Okay, have a great Sunday. Take care. Maybe see you next week. Bye for now.